A Tory MP has been arrested on suspicion of rape. The accusations levelled against the MP span a period of 7 years, from 2002 to 2009. The man is in his 50s and has been released on bail. He was also held on suspicion of indecent assault, abuse of a position of trust, and misconduct in public office. And while the MP has not yet been suspended from the Conservative Party, he has been advised to stay away from Parliament while police investigate. And while there has been speculation on social media as to who the arrested MP is, we'll refrain from commenting on their identity due to legal reasons. In any case, whoever this person is, the arrest marks the latest in a series of allegations and convictions concerning sex offences by Tory MPs. This is the long list of Tory MPs known to have been accused of sexual misconduct, including more than one convicted of sexual assault. In April, Tory MP Imran Ahmad Khan was found guilty of molesting a child. The former MP for Wakefield had sat on a panel advising the government on child grooming while under police caution for the offence. Khan was expelled from the party following his conviction, triggering a by-election in his seat due to be held on the 23rd of June. Even more recently, Chair of the Environment Committee Neil Parish resigned after admitting to watching porn on his phone in the Commons chamber. He claimed that he'd viewed it by accident while researching tractors. Parish's resignation triggered another by-election, this time in Tiverton and Honiton, which will also be held on the 23rd of June. Another Tory, David Warburton MP, was also suspended in April after a photo emerged showing him alongside several lines of cocaine. The picture was taken in the home of a younger woman who claimed that Warburton assaulted her after taking off his clothes and getting into bed with her. That was, according to her account, despite telling him she had no interest in doing anything sexual with him. And last year, Tory MP Rob Roberts was suspended from Parliament and the party after sexually harassing a staff member. The staff member, who has now left, said that Roberts repeatedly propositioned him, leaving him shocked and horrified. Roberts returned to Parliament after just 6 weeks, and the Tory party readmitted him shortly afterwards, though he now sits as an independent. Also last year, a judge found that Andrew Griffiths, a former Tory minister and one-time chief of staff to Theresa May, had repeatedly raped and assaulted his wife, fellow Tory MP Kate Griffiths. In 2018, before these crimes came to light, he was suspended from the party following allegations that he had sent 2,000 lewd comments to a 28-year-old barmaid and her friend on social media over a 3-week period. Nonetheless, May restored the whip to him in December 2018 to stack the deck in her favour during a no-confidence vote. Another Tory MP suspended and then reinstated to save Theresa May's skin was Charlie Elphicke. He was jailed in 2020 after being found guilty of sexually assaulting 2 women. But he originally had the whip withdrawn in 2017 after 2 members of staff accused him of sexual offences. In his trial, the jury was told that he had chased one woman around his house singing, quote, "I'm a naughty Tory, I'm a naughty Tory." His ex-wife, NP Natalie Elphicke, signed a statement accusing his victim of lying. She remains a member of the party. Going further back, though only to 2017, Defence Secretary Michael Fallon resigned after he was accused of sexual harassment by several women over many years. They included journalists Julia Hartley-Brewer and Jane Merrick. Also that year, Damien Green, First Secretary of State and Minister for the Cabinet Office in Theresa May's government, resigned. This was after he was found to have lied about pornography found on his Westminster computer, as well as allegations made he had harassed a young Conservative activist. Finally, Tory MP Mark Garnier was accused of sexually harassing his secretary, also in 2017. Garnier, at the time, was International Trade Minister and was ultimately cleared by the Cabinet Office of breaking the ministerial code, but he did accept a number of the claims made by his former staff member, including that he asked her to buy 2 vibrators at a Soho sex shop and called her sugar tits. It's hard not to see this absolute shower of sleaze as indicating a serious and systemic problem in the Tory party. And the apparent problem isn't just limited to Conservatives. According to Politico, there are currently 56 MPs subject to sexual misconduct complaints. That includes 3 ministers from the cabinet and 2 ministers from the shadow cabinet. Moya, that was a very sort of unpleasant list of Tories and either things they have been found guilty of or have been subject to allegations of. What should we make of the fact that so many MPs seem to be subject to these kind of complaints?
I just want to make the point that this is something that is an issue across both sides of the House of Commons. This is not limited to Tory MPs. Mike Hill recently was a really egregious one, but I see this part of a bigger pattern of systemic abuse of power. And within that, you have sexual misconduct, you have bullying, you have corruption. It's all part of, I would say, the degradation of political office. So we have MPs currently who believe that they can do things with impunity. And more often than not, they're proven correct. So they step up what they can do. And this often is expressed in the form of sexual misconduct because of the way power dynamics play out in these spaces. So, for example, you might have somebody within the House of Parliament who is a woman. She has more power than your average person on the street, say, Claudia Webb, for example. Then she is found to have abused that power. But more often than not, if you have equipped men of a certain background, of a certain standing with power, they will then be able to wield it in an even more destructive way, such as sexual harassment, misconduct against people, including their colleagues. Nadia Whittome recently wrote a piece about the sexual harassment that she's experienced within Westminster. But as I said, this is part of this wider system where MPs are not held accountable. And because of that, once they get into that place, power is corrupting them, I think, frankly. And there are the systems that are meant to hold them to account, the systems that are meant to make sure that behavior doesn't occur, are not working. And we have to ask why they're not working and why these have not been implemented properly. AKA, who is benefiting from that? The answer is very obvious, but these questions are just not being asked. All these things are being treated as sort of, why is there so much sexual misconduct in Westminster, rather than being seen as part of this wider landscape of abuse of power? And until we look at it as this larger problem, I don't think anything will be comprehensively solved.
There's two sort of really worrying issues about this. One is what's actually going on in and around Parliament, or what's alleged to be going on in and around Parliament, as you're talking about what this represents about how power can be abused in British workplaces. But then also that these are people making the laws of the land. So it kind of matters what their attitudes are to issues such as sexual abuse in the workplace, because they are the people who should be legislating to stop it. And someone, along with all of the evidence we just presented you, someone who really doesn't seem to be taking this seriously at all is a Tory MP, Michael Fabricant. After news of the MP's arrest on suspicion of rape emerged, he posted this on social media. I am expecting a strong turnout of Conservative MPs at Prime Minister's questions today, not only to demonstrate their strong support for #Boris, in brackets, !, but also to prove they are not the one told by the Chief Whip to stay at home. I'll be there. And then, I don't know how to describe that emoji, sort of tongue out with doing a wink. So very much making light of the fact that a Tory MP has been told not to come into Parliament because they have been arrested on suspicion of rape. And he is making light of that. Oh, we'll all have to come into Parliament then, so you don't think we're the one arrested on suspicion of rape. Moira, I want to get you to talk sort of specifically about that element, about the fact that these people are legislators. They are making the laws of this land. And from the fact that this seems to be a systematic problem in Parliament and responses like that, it doesn't seem like these are the right people to be legislating on issues as important as this.
Yes, but you could also say that for many of the issues they have to legislate on. I don't think many of the politicians we have in the modern day are fit for government or office, personally. Politics is seen as this dirty, grubby space, in part because of behaviour like this. It's this sort of catch-22. You have this corruption, this abuse, this behavior, people very blatantly misusing their powers and not being fit for office. And then you get people who think, well, I'm not going to get involved in politics. It's not for me. All politicians are corrupt. They are grubby. I don't want to be part of that. And there's political disengagement as a result of that. There's lots of studies out there that show the more apathetic and disengaged people become, the less likely they are to be galvanized and involved in the political sphere. And that means anything from voting to running for office themselves in local communities. It doesn't help when we have quite obviously unfair selection processes to decide who even gets the chance to run for being an MP in the first place. Those channels of getting ordinary people who really do represent their communities into the halls of power where they can make laws because they want to best represent the people who they have come from, those channels are blocked, I think, probably as badly as they may have been when they first were developed. These all play into this, as I said, wider system of who wants to be a politician in the first place. It's like policing, for example, policing the exams that you have to sit to, these sort of like entrance application forms that you have to do in order to apply to be a police officer are designed to weed out people who might not take to exercising power in a way that many of us would describe as authoritarian. People have spoken to that. They've testified to that being found not fit for purpose because of perhaps views that might be seen as more compassionate or more left-wing or liberal by, the general public. This is all part of the selection processes. It's all part of who gets to be there, who wants to be there in the first place. And all this adds up to the fact that we get people like Michael Fabricant, who is essentially a comedy character wearing wheat on his head, who somehow seems to be in the news every single day, speaking on behalf of the government. And that's perhaps because the government are now getting the spokespeople they deserve rather than the ones they want. And while it's funny in some ways to look at this ridiculous figure and think, how on earth did you get there? It's also a damning indictment of where we're at with the people who represent us.
Tysky Sour is free for all to access. We're not behind a paywall. We don't have ad partnerships. And we will never answer to the super rich. We provide independent analysis, thorough reporting on the issues drastically impacting our lives. And we do all this thanks to our regular supporters. Join them from just £1 per month and donate anything you can at novaramedia.com/support. We couldn't make the show without you.